Hello, and welcome to the St. Louis Goalkeeping Academy's instructional video on techniques for punching. Alright, today we're going to talk about a technique that we don't use very often, so we generally don't spend a lot of time on it in the training session. However, when it comes time in a game to use this technique, it's important that we have a good understanding of how to execute correctly. Poor execution from a technical standpoint using this technique is going to put you in danger of suffering goals because the quality of the punch is poor. We're going to start this session by just talking about the technical ideas that you want to adhere to, and then at the end we'll go through a progression of drills that you can use to kind of work on the technique and practical purposes. To begin with, starting with your technique. All right, a couple things you want to adhere to. One, you want to make sure that when you punch, all right, if you're going to punch two-handed, and there are a couple different styles, the ways you want to punch. Sometimes you're going to have to punch one-handed. Sometimes you can punch two-handed. When you're punching two-handed, all right, it's very important that the fists get pushed together. You don't want to have any space between your two fists here. The thumbs, you want to be on top. You don't want your thumbs inside of your fingers at all. Okay, you want them to sit on top of your fingers there. All right, and you want the fingers here to press against the base of the palm. Then you take your two fists and you want to press them together hard so it's firm. And it's flat. You should make sure that one fist isn't higher than the other fist, like this. All right, they've got to be in even balance. So you've got one large, flat, smooth surface. All right, if you're going to punch with two hands. If you're punching with one hand, it's the same concept in terms of the thumb. The thumb should just sit right on top. The fingers are pressed against the base of the palm here. I'm just going to take the tips of my fingers and press them against the base of my palm there. And I'm just going to work with this flat surface here, like this. All right, to my right and to my left, the same thing there. All right, it's very important that your wrists stay locked here. Okay, you can't afford to let the wrist flop around when punching. So at the point of contact with the ball, you got to make sure that the wrists are tight. Now, the next thing we need to think about is our arms, all right? How our arms respond in this moment of punching. Generally, you want to make sure that the elbows, these elbows, stay tucked into your sides here, like this. You never really want to get your elbows out here. A couple reasons, all right? When your elbows come out, the wrists, the fingers here, the hands, have a tendency to bow inwards, all right, which creates an uneven surface like that, as opposed to being like that. The second thing that happens when these elbows come out is you lose power. So if you can keep these elbows tucked into your sides here, like this, all right, and work from that way, all right, it'll help you with your power. It also allows your motion to be more efficient and clean. And generally, if you start getting your motion out here, where you're punching, all right, in an uncoordinated and unbalanced fashion, the quality of your punch is going to suffer greatly. If you're just, same principle applies if you're just talking one-handed. All right, if I'm just going to use a ball skinning flighted in, and I'm going to have in a position where I have to punch, I want to make sure this elbow doesn't come out wide here. I want to keep it here, and it's just a straight motion like this, right, like that. So if you're looking at it, it's just straight, right? I don't have to really use a whole lot of energy in the motion. I don't want to try to punch this ball as hard as I can. I don't want to swing at it like I'm punching somebody or anything like that, like boxers would punch somebody. You don't want this arm getting out wide. It's just a short jab. The quality of the jab, right, is really what's important. How clean and efficient is the motion? That's going to be what dictates, all right, part of what dictates the quality, the reaction of the ball off your hand. If you start to get out wide here like this, right, chances are, better than not, that the punch, the quality of the punch is going to suffer in a big way. Okay, so now let's bring in the ball here. Let's talk about, there's some things you got to keep in mind when dealing with the ball, and that is, where on the ball do you want to punch this ball, all right? And the ball is your guide in terms of what you need to adjust. Ideally, when the ball's coming in here, you want to try to find dead center. You want your fists, or fists together, you want them to make contact on the ball at dead center. So wherever the imaginary point is, that's if you were to cut this ball in half across this way and then cut the ball in half down this way, wherever those two lines intersect, that's ideally where you would like your fist to make contact with the ball. If, let's say for example, your fist makes contact underneath of center, way under here, your ball's going to have a lot of backspin to it. All right, so if you see that the ball has a lot of backspin, you know you made contact with the ball too far below the center line. Okay, if the ball has a lot of topspin to it when you punch, you know your fist made contact with the ball too high of the center line that goes across here. All right, same thing applies to where if you hit a punch a ball and it has spin like this, you know that you hit too far on the side of the center line that comes down the middle. All right, or if the ball has side spin going this way, you know that you hit too far on this side of that imaginary center line. So there's these two imaginary center lines, one that goes across here and one that comes down here, and where those two lines intersect, that's the target. That's where you're aiming for on the ball. It's not always going to be that easy though, especially when you're punching balls and you've got people around you in spaces. That's generally the reason you're punching a ball, is because you're not in a position where you can get both hands to it cleanly, where you can just catch. The priority should always be to catch. You should always be looking to catch this ball, all right, as opposed to punch it. But sometimes, especially on balls that are served in off of crosses during the run of play, or during corner kicks, or free kicks, whatever, from out in there, there's a lot of traffic in here. There's a lot of bodies, and there are going to be times when the ball is served in such a way that you just can't get there cleanly. It might be because the ball is driven in low, and there's an opponent there, or maybe a defender and a couple opponents, and instead of having to reach over the top because the trajectory of the ball is low, instead of having to reach over the top of them to catch it, you're just going to have to punch straight through. Other times the trajectory will be lofted enough, it'll have enough loft in it for you to get underneath it, but the problem is there are just too many bodies. It's too congested for you to catch cleanly. You might have 6, 7 bodies there, and the only thing you're going to be able to do is get in with one hand or the other hand, maybe sometimes both hands, and punch. But those are generally the only times you should be looking to punch. I see a lot of goalkeepers that shots come in and they want to punch away shots. Absolutely, without a question, you should never do that. Never. All right? Just in the theory that if a shot comes in and you want to punch it to the side, you're only working with this much surface area. That's how much surface area you're working with. All right? As opposed to if the shot comes in and I want to push it wide, why not use my whole hand here? All right? I'm working with that much surface area. All right? If I'm looking to push it wide as opposed to that. More surface contact that I have on the ball equals more control, and that's plain and simple. So if I'm looking to punch away a shot, I'm losing control. I don't have as much guiding control as I would otherwise if I just used an open hand. So you should never really use the punch for shot stopping in any way. Sometimes shots will come in really hard at goalkeepers. You'll see it at the high levels, and they just want to get set and punch a ball away like that. No, don't. All right? It's, again, here, and maybe if it's super hard, maybe you can control it where it comes down and bounces off the ground and you take it off the second catch. Okay, something like that. But this boxing, this punching, should only be used for balls that you absolutely cannot catch, and it's because of a crowded area. Alright? So those are generally the principles that you want to adhere to. Alright, so in this first phase of our drill work here, the first progression, we're just going to take a ball. This is something you can do at home all by yourself. You don't need anybody to help you. We're just going to take a ball and we're just going to work our fists, alright, using the correct technique that we've already talked about. And we're just going to punch, alright, like this. Just right above my head, like such. Alright, you want to go single hand, or if I want to alternate hand, like this. Alright, notice that the control is pretty good if I don't have to move my feet a lot. If I don't find myself running around chasing the ball all over, and I'm pretty much just in one specific spot, then the quality of my punch is pretty good. You should be looking for as little spin on the ball as possible. The less the spin, the better the quality of the contact with your hand on the ball. Alright, so I can play little games with myself, alternate back and forth, left, right, I'll bring in double if I want, left, right, double, left, right, double. Alright, and you do this. The more you can do, you spend about 10-15 minutes a day doing it. Keep track of how many you can do consecutively. Okay, play little games with yourself. So you get up to around anywhere between 50 and 100, then you know you're pretty good at it. You got pretty good control, you can move on to the next level.